Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Google Analytics goals, how you set them up, some common issues you might have with goals, and hopefully everything you need to know about goals. If at the end of the videos you still have any questions remaining regarding goals, please let them down in the comment sections below. So I'm here in my Google Analytics account and let's have a look at how you set up goals. To set up goals, you need to have at least edit access on the Google Analytics view where you're trying to create those goals. If you don't have at least edit access, you're not going to be able to set up goals, but you are going to be able to see what goals are already created for the view. So to create a goal, you have to navigate to the admin section, and then you have to select the view under which you want to create the goal. And then you go to the goals menu. And if you've never set up a goal before, this is going to be empty. Otherwise, you're going to have a list of goals that you have already created. So to create a goal, you just press on the new goal button. And I generally don't use the templates. I just go to custom, press continue. You have to give the goal a name. And in this case, I'm going to be tracking a contact us page. So that's what I'm going to be naming my goals. You can name your goals whatever you want, but I suggest you keep the naming somewhat suggestive so that you know what you're tracking. An interesting thing to know and to keep in mind, for each Google Analytics view, you can create up to 20 goals. And these goals are grouped in 4 sets of 5 goals. And when you're creating goals, you're probably going to have multiple goals created for your website. And you can actually use these goal sets in the reporting interface. And I'm going to show you that a bit later on. Because of this, it is important to think a bit back exactly how you want to place each goal, exactly at what position, because maybe you want different goals in different goal sets. There is a lot of talk in the analytics world about macro conversions and micro conversions. So macro conversion would be something very important that happens on your site. Someone purchasing a product, someone contacting you, someone signing up for a newsletter. And then micro conversions would be something like people playing a video, people downloading a file, people spending a certain amount of time on your website. So this could be a good way of using these goal sets. So maybe in goal set 1, putting all your important goals, and then in goal set 2, putting your less important goals. Or maybe depending on how many goals you have defined and what's your exact measurement strategy, you're going to find a different way of setting them up. 20 goals is usually enough, but in case you need to create more goals, you're going to have to create a new view and create those goals in that new view that you're creating. So for me, because this is a test view, I don't really care where I create this goal. I'm just going to put it here. And when you create a goal, you have 4 types of goals types, and we're going to go through all of them. The first one is being a destination. So this is a goal that you create when people reach a specific page on your site, and this is exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to press continue, and at the goal destination, it asks me to enter the screen name or the exact URL of where that goal takes place. So I'm going to go to my website now, and you see here I have a contact us. I press on it, it takes me to the contact.html file. I'm just going to give it a name and some text. And I'm going to press submit, and then it takes me to this thank you page. And you see the URL of it, it's localhost. This doesn't matter. This appears like this because this is a site on my computer, it's not on a server. And then /thankyou.html. And this is the part I need to copy and put as a goal. So the first slash and everything that comes after it. And this is a common mistake I see. I see sometimes people putting their entire website here. For example, if I would put this goal like this, it would be wrong and it would not work. You only need to add the first slash and what comes after it. And then In some cases, you also might have some parameters in the URL. So you might see something like question mark, uh, something equals something else. That is called a parameter. And in this case, you generally will want to eliminate all those parameters from your URL when you put it in. And instead of equals to, you would select begins with. And then this goal URL would work regardless of what kind of parameters you have following. Another important thing to notice here is you saw in my website, my URL looks exactly like this /thankyou.html. In some cases, if your site looks like this /thankyou.html and you use equals to and you only put /thankyou, the goal is not going to work because this looks for it to look exactly like this. So be very careful of how your URL looks like. I strongly encourage you to complete a test conversion on your website to see the exact URL and not guess it, and copy that exact URL and paste it here. Google Analytics also allows me to assign a value to the goal if I would choose to by turning this to on. And in case of destination goals, this value can only be a static value. So it cannot be dynamic. So this is not a great use case for e-commerce, for example, but for that Google Analytics does have a separate e-commerce functionality that I discussed in another video. But you can use this option of goals, for example, if you're only selling like one product on your website and it always has the same cost, you just put that price here, and that's always going to be your conversion value. Another good way of using this would be with an average value. Let's say you're doing consulting work and for every 10 times someone reaches out to you, you sell a package that costs $500. So then the average would be 500 divided by 10, which is 50. So you could use 50 in that case, or you could use a completely made up value. For example, let's say you're not necessarily selling anything on your website, it's more like a presentation website. You could assign values from 1 to 10, with 1 being the less important goals and 10 being the most important goals for you. And then you assign this value and then you look at the whatever happens. In my case, for this, I don't want any value. Another option you can set up is a funnel. And a funnel is basically the steps that someone has to take before they complete the goal. And in my case, you saw that before the /thankyou, you have to go to the /contact.html page. So I'm gonna add that here and call it contact page. And you can make this step required or not. This does not influence how the goal works. You can leave it to yes or no. This only influences how the reports in the goal funnel reports show data. And I'm going to show you those reports in a second. And you can then also verify this goal. And for me, it tells me it's a 0% conversion just because I don't have any historic data. But in your case, if you configured the goal correctly on your website and you went through all these steps, this should work fine. Another important thing to keep in mind about goals in Google Analytics is that they only start recording from the date when you create them. So they're not gonna backfill any kind of data for you. And then you can go ahead and just save the goal after you complete it. Another thing to notice here is that you can actually not delete any kind of Google Analytics goal. The only thing you can do is to turn it on or off. And that's the only thing you can do. But you can edit a goal. So if by any chance you created it in a wrong way, you didn't input the correct page or anything, you can go back at a later date and edit the goal. Let's have a look at other goal types. So I'm gonna go again to custom, continue. The next type of goal is a duration goal. And this is very simple to understand what it means. It basically measures people that spend more than a given amount of time on your website. And you're free to define what that means. If it's more than 5 seconds, if it's more than 5 minutes, or whatever makes sense for you. An important thing to keep in mind here is the way Google Analytics calculates time on site by default. So it calculates time on site as a timestamp between two subsequent page views or events. So for example, if I land on a page and I stay half an hour there, but I don't do anything, that is going to be a 0-second visit according to Google Analytics. However, if I navigate after 3 minutes to another page, that is going to be a 3-minute visit to Google Analytics. So as long as you don't have any kind of custom implementation for Google Analytics and you just have the default one, keep this in mind for how time on site gets calculated. And again, you can assign a value or not to this goal. I think I probably have some data for this, so I'm gonna assign 5 seconds here and let's see if I can verify it. No, I still have no data for this. But this being just a website I built today, I don't find that surprising because it takes some time for Google Analytics to update the data. So I'm gonna cancel that. The other type of goal is a page or screens per session. And again, that's very easy to understand what it is. You can only select greater than and give it a number of pages. So let's say people that view more than 4 pages on your website, you consider that as an important goal. I would recommend first you look in your Google Analytics reports on what's the average number of pages that people normally visit and put a higher number than that. That would be a good way of starting this, or you can think of maybe what's relevant for you in your industry. I typically find that in most cases people that visit more than 4 or 5 pages on a website are generally fairly engaged. I'm going to cancel out of this goal as well. And the last type of goal that you can create from the, let's say, traditional ones is an event-based goal. And I also discuss how to create event-based goals in my events videos, where I also go really deep on how to actually set up events. But the event goal, you first have to create a goal, an event in Google Analytics and send data to Google Analytics for that event. And then it lets you create an event based off of either the category or the action or the label of that event. For me, I have a goal that I called example. I have a event that I called example that I did send it a few times to Google Analytics. And you can also assign a value or only measure it when the value is greater than something. What is nice about the event-based goals is that you can actually use the value of the event as values for goals. So coming back to that example of having multiple products that you sell on your website, you could create an event for each of them when they get sold with the actual value of the product itself. And then you can pass that on to a goal in Google Analytics using this type of goal configuration. And this is the only the only goal configuration in Google Analytics where you will be able to pass on a value. And then once you're done, you can of course save it and it's going to appear in your list. The last type of goal that you can create, and for me you see it here, it doesn't allow me to create it, is what are called smart goals. And to be able to create a smart goal, you have to have Google Ads, formerly known as Google AdWords, linked to your Google Analytics account and have at least 500 sessions in your Google Analytics account over the last 30 days coming from Google Ads. And these 500 sessions has to be on a continuous basis. So let's say right now you have 500 sessions, but next month you maybe turn off your Google Ads or your traffic decreases. You fell below the 500 threshold, so the smart goals become inactive again. So you have to constantly maintain that 500 limit. And the way that smart goals work, Google basically looks at what are your most engaged sessions and considers those as conversions. With any type of goal that you create in Google Analytics, you can import it in Google Ads as a conversion and you can optimize towards it. And I show how to do that in the Google Ads videos. But if you have the possibility to install Google Ads conversion tracking on your website, I would advise you to do that instead. Another thing that you can do with goals, you can actually import goals. So you have the option of importing from gallery. And in the gallery, you have all kinds of things created, and this is available in multiple interfaces in Google Ads, so not just goals. And goals is probably a pretty strange thing to implement because they're so site specific, but you do have this possibility. And the last thing that I want to show you is that you can actually also share goals with other people. And you might find this fairly useful in case you're managing multiple websites that have similar configuration. Maybe you're working for a company that has the same website on different domains for different countries, but then the URL structure is exactly the same. Or you might you want to track the same goal across multiple views in your Google Analytics account and you don't want to share it all the time, or you don't want to create it all the time. So the way to share it is you go down here to share assets. You select the goal you want to share and you press the share button, and you can either generate a link or share it in the solution gallery. So for my example, I just want to generate a link, and if I press the share button, this is the link that I have to open. So I'm just going to copy it from here, and when I open it, it's going to give me the option to import this goal into one of the accounts that I have access to, which is pretty nice. And this is how I personally use goals across multiple views on the same account. And now let's also go a bit to the reporting interface. So goals, you see goals in all of the different reports in Google Analytics. Basically, they appear as a separate column in almost all reports, where you can see what the conversion rate is for a specific goal. So if I go here to my acquisition reports and I go to all traffic and to source medium, for example, I can switch this view from the default e-commerce, if you have e-commerce configured, either to all goals or to a specific goal. And I can see what the goal completion rate for that is. And remember when I was mentioning earlier, when creating goals, that it is important to think about how you group them into different goal sets, because that's available interface. Well, this is where it is available. So in the case of this site, there's only one goal set, and I can press on that and see an analysis for that. But if I would have multiple goal sets, I could actually select all of them from here and I would get this report for that goal set. So that's why it's a good idea to create different goal sets for different type of events, be it micro or macro conversions. But the place where you can get the best view for goals in Google Analytics is under the conversion tab, under goals, and you have here a few reports. The first one is the overview report, where you are able to see exactly how many goal completions you have, what is the goal value, and this only shows if you defined any value, the goal conversion rate, abandonment rate, and so on. And of course, you can do all the normal things with this overview, like you can do with other reports in Google Analytics. So you can change the exact metric that you're looking at. You can compare it to another metric. You can change the graph if it's daily, weekly, monthly, the date range, or you have the option, and instead of looking at all the goals, to just look at one goal in specific. Then if you navigate to the goals URL menu, you'll get a table view with all the locations where goals are being completed on your website and which pages are the most common one. And this is very useful when you have multiple goals created on your web page. Then you have the reverse goal path report, which shows what previous steps people took before they completed the location, before they completed the goal. And in case you haven't created a funnel for your goal, this is a good report where you can have a look at to try to understand what's the normal path that people take to complete the goal, and then you can use this to create that funnel visualization. The next one is the funnel visualization, and you only get this report if you actually configure the funnel, and you are going to get in this report all of the people that went through the funnel and where did they drop off. And you can really use this report to try to understand where there might be some problems in your website. For example, in this website, at the first step of the funnel, there is a massive drop-off. So only 20% of the people make it to the next step. And for a first step, this is a very, very big drop-off. I would expect more, like only 20% of people dropping off and 80% making it to the next step. So this would be a good time to go on the website exactly at this page and see what's happening and where these people are going. And you can see here exactly from what pages people came to this page and then where they went. So these ones, they exited the websites, but you have some people that also navigated to other pages. And then you can see all the way down the funnel how they made it and exactly how many people made it all the way to the end. And if you have funnels created for multiple goals, you can actually change the goal from here and have a look at each of them to see what happens. For example, this goal does not have a funnel, so you don't see anything in it. Then you have the goal flow report. And here you can see how people navigated and reached a specific goal on the website. By default, it's grouped by source, but you can change it to something else if you want. So most things that Google Analytics measures, you can select it from here and change it to that. And you're going to be able to see how people navigated through the different pages of the website and how they reached the goal at the end. And you can change which goal you're looking at by this drop-down menu here. For example, let's have a look at registrations. So for this, there's no different paths. There's no funnel created for it. So you're only going to be able to see this. And then lastly, if you have smart goals created on your site, this is where you're going to be able to see them. Again, to have smart goals, you have to have Google Ads linked to Google Analytics and at least 500 sessions in the last 30 days coming from Google Ads. And then you're going to be able to see for the sessions that are eligible, how many of them actually completed a smart goal and how many of them did not. So this is what I wanted to show you about Google Analytics goals. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching and have a good day.